that's all right.
So,
Number 6 is items for board action.
can we just clarify that one?
There's only 2 items on here. 6.01 is a personnel, resignation of Pat Sassy, principal high school, effective 11/30/2021. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. 6.02 is the 2016 and 2013 bond refunding parameter resolution. Motion is to approve the resolution authorizing the occurrence of non-electoral debt to be evidenced by the issuance of 2 series bonds, series 2021, in the maximum aggregate principal amount of $12,225,000, and series 2022 in the maximum aggregate principal amount of $28,950,000 to provide funds for the refunding project as presented. Do I have this motion?
So moved. Second.
Questions or comments?
Just want to note for the benefit of folks who are here for the meeting tonight, this was the purpose of the special meeting tonight. For those of you that are board meeting last month, you may have noticed that we had to pull this resolution for us to be able to do the bond refunding. The bond refunding notice was not properly advertised by the Delaware County Daily Times. They acknowledged that they had it on our electronic edition, they did not have it in their print edition. So to comply with the advertising requirements and the public notice requirements, we pulled that so that they could run that advertisement, that notice, which has been done. So this evening, the board is then voting on that bond refunding parameters resolution, which in short form basically enables us to essentially refund higher cost bonds at a lower rate, and enables us to bring taxpayers some savings in a similar way that many people will refinance their own debt. This is an effort for us to do that for our school district as well. I also added the resignation of our high school principal so that we could have on that, that addressed by the board, and he could inform his new employer of his first day there. So I moved that forward from next week's board meeting, typically personnel actions we would have at our regular board meeting. I wanted to give Mr. Sassy the opportunity to officially inform his new employer of his start date. So only 2 items that are being proposed tonight: the bond refunding parameters resolution, as well as the official notice of the resignation of Mr. Patrick Sassy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stone. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Comments by members of the public? Comments by members of the board? Next meeting is next Wednesday, November 17th, is our business meeting here at the Service Center. Motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
Yes.
Today, the AFG is out doing the money to the contractors that got moved to January 4th. So they're like, oh, because our deadline's November 22nd. I feel like the contractors are in special conditions. Remember, in some places,
Weird. They do.
I don't know, I guess.
Nothing.
That was that. Unless they're going through the study. If they're doing a big part. Leon did some work on his Robert's rules that when you don't have that heavy commenting, you're supposed to say hearing none, seeing none, move on.
We're gonna start tonight's meeting off with, items of board information. I'm gonna say a thing here, hand it over to Dr. Steinhoff, but, as we all know, this afternoon, the, circuit court, changed and took action on Governor Wolf, and just for till 3 o'clock this afternoon, he turned around and filed another,
Appeal.
court ruling that until the current, appeal is voted on, the mandate is still in place. That comes very from our legal team. So, we are still under the current, Dr. Steinhoff will speak a little bit more to that. For about 3 hours, we were not under a mask mandate. But come 3 o'clock this afternoon, as soon as he filed that appeal, they could rule on it tomorrow, they could rule on it July, or January 16th, we don't know. Kind of, they did come out Monday and say that as of January 17th, it was up to the local, school boards whether they want to mask their kids in schools, but that's 2 months from now, and who knows how many different times it'll change between now and then. They could rule on it tomorrow during court session, nobody knows. It's awful crazy you can get an appeal in 3 hours, but we won't have an answer for 3 months. Dr. Steinhoff, would like to.
Sure, thank you. On that note, I did forward to the board the emails that we received today from Noah Ortega, Secretary of Education. Mr. Armour and I also received clarification from our school board solicitor indicating that we should stay the course. We should not unwind the mask mandate because the governor did exactly what everybody expected. Governor did appeal Commonwealth Court's ruling that indicated that the mask order was a violation and should not move forward. With the appeal, it automatically triggers a stay, which means that the governor's order, K-12 mask requirements, will stay in effect. I am certain for a very, very large number of our staff that was reassuring to them because they know that the masks, at least in our schools, have been effective for them in minimizing in-school transmission.
Unforgivable.
The governor also earlier this week announced that the mask requirement would likely expire on January 17th, as Mr. Farmer indicated. And at that time, any decisions on masking would revert to local control. So it would be the school board's decision to update our health and safety plan to continue to require masks if necessary, or to recommend the use of masks. There are a number of districts, I would say the majority of the districts in Delaware County will be recommending that masks remain if Delaware County continues to have a high level of COVID cases and they remain in a substantial phase. That's one approach that a number of districts are taking. I know that we have until January 17th to divine the directions of the board as to what their plans are for their school district once January 17th comes and the mask mandate does indeed expire. So I received, I'd say, 3 or 4 inquiries this afternoon. Emails from parents are saying, you know, does this mean that masks do not need to be worn? And I anticipate, you know, we will continue to get those questions because the headlines basically say Commonwealth Court determined that the acting Secretary of Health erred in the mask order. So I think there were some steps along the way where they felt that it wasn't properly implemented. I don't think there was a broad ruling, it was a divided court ruling. But nevertheless, I will be letting the school district community know essentially the following points: that today the Commonwealth Court issued a ruling voiding acting Secretary Beam's school mask order, that the state filed an appeal today, which triggers a stay of the court's ruling that keeps the order in effect. Secretary Ortega notified school districts that schools should continue to observe the school masking order throughout the duration of the court's proceedings. They went on to clarify the value of the masking order. So that's where we are on that. I think that it will lead to questions. I think it will probably bring back the kind of divided, polarizing debate about masks that we didn't necessarily need to have, because we knew there was a termination date coming up. But across the state, I think that will bring that piece back. It would not surprise me if the process, as it works its way through the courts, could take longer than the expiration date on January 17th anyway. We're pleased that this week, the test to stay option for students is now available. Students are deemed to be close contacts in our school have the ability to go through the test to stay protocols. So rather than automatically being quarantined and staying out of school and staying home without access to live instruction, they have the ability to access that instruction as long as they go through the protocols of being tested every 2 to 3 days. We really want to compliment our nurses for the efforts that they took there to ensure that we could ramp that up really as quickly as possible and limit the number of students that we have in quarantine. Our hope is that although right now that is only for in-school close contacts, if the number of cases continues to moderate and the nurses can accommodate students who may have been determined to be close contacts outside of school, maybe on a soccer team, or maybe at a fall festival party, that we would also be able to accommodate those students as well. But currently, it is only for in-school close contacts. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stein. With that, I would say that a long way to go before January gets here, but I would anticipate that the board go as we always have and follow the guidance. If it is recommended, will be recommended. If it is mandated, that would be my opinion. But we'll see what happens between now and January 17th.
Mr. Arlen, question on the test to stay, George, which is great, you know, parent, 2 kids in Sun Valley. We got bit by the quarantine last year. You know, I had my son miss a week of school, 3 baseball games, still haunts me to this day. He's like, I don't wanna miss any school. So they were you know, I sent their forms in with them on Monday, they got it back, you know, we got our confirmation back from the nurse with a QR code to scan in case something does come up, so they're in the system and ready to go. But, you know, I just think that, and this is to my fellow board members, I hope we don't have any advanced conversations between now, after today, and let's get to the end of the year. I mean, it's the least of our concerns. And, you know, labor shortages, cost of everything through the roof. You know, if anyone needs masks, I have 2,500 of them still in a box from the 5,000 I purchased 18 months ago. If anyone needs any, I have. So, you know, whether you for it or against it, you know, it's 50%, but the kids want to stay in school. The kids want, you know, they don't want to miss stuff. You know, we're down the home stretch here. We're halfway. So, you know, that's what it's all about. You know, whether you know, I walk in here, my retired neighbor jumped me about the mask thing. He said, I guess the kids don't have to wear masks tomorrow. I said, Steve, you don't give out Halloween candy, so you don't really care about kids, so just go back inside. So, you know, that just goes to show you how, you know, that, you know, my opinion doesn't really matter. Just, you know, we follow the guidance. And it's Chester County, you said the health department, so they've been curiously, well, not curiously, absent through the second phase of this as we went back to school. Are they just standing pat, or, you know, obviously it's a health crisis, we follow their health guidance, we've always done. Bernie Seasock is not gonna make a decision on masks, I follow health guidance.
Yeah, but this year we've had to rely on the State Department of Health, since the partnership with Chester County Department of Health ended. We anticipate that by early spring, the County Department of Health will be up and running. So Delaware County will have its own Department of Health. But I agree with your sentiments in terms of, you know, what the kids want. You know, last night, we had an in-person National Honor Society induction. You know, for some of the best kids at Sun Valley. I mean, just a really incredibly bright, talented, service-oriented, high-character group of kids. And it was wonderful to see that happen. And to have the in-person induction ceremony, if all it means is put on a mask, these kids got to have the National Honor Society induction ceremony, whereas we had students that couldn't do that, right? We had students that had to do that by Zoom, it's not the same thing. And it was really great to see, you know, it was great to see school finally getting back to some levels of normalcy. Kids getting up, giving their speeches, kids feeling proud of the work. You know, came over here tonight, you've got, you know, all these students out under the lights, you know, practicing in the marching band at, you know, what, 7 o'clock at night, right? So they're back out doing things, And that, to me, is the issue where we're hearing about so many mental health issues for adolescents. What they're finding is these mental health issues were developed primarily from so many students being, you know, secluded, not being in school, not being with their friends. So you had, some students had a year of pretty much learning from their bedroom, right? And that can kind of be grim, you know, you don't get to laugh with your friends, you don't get to share. So I've heard about a new trend where some districts are saying we need student mental health days, and they're closing schools. I actually think that's the complete opposite of what should be happening, right? Having a kid just stay home in their bedroom, on their cell phone, Instagramming or whatever all day, I don't see how that's helpful for student mental health. Getting back to normal, to me, is where we should be headed. That's all.
You got, our administration and teachers did an awesome job getting these guys back and, you know, learning from their bedrooms. We, you know, I would, that's my biggest fear is if, you know, we spikes up in cases and our guys go out of school and we shut school down. Like my two guys at home, that's the worst fear, realize. Start missing activities, it's bad, so. We're not going wood, we're going stronger. We're doing a great job.
Thank you, Carol. Appreciate it.
Financial board information and discussion? Comments by members of the board? We'll go through any public comments on anything on the agenda? Next.
Leo, I have a lot of stuff that I want to discuss tonight, so I don't know where that comes in. That I sent you.
Yeah. We can do it now, we can do it again, we can do agenda review.
That's fine.
So 4.01, we have a professional resignations, leave of absences. Everybody got their emails, anybody have any questions on any of those extra pay assignments or athletic appointments?
I think that's fine, I appreciate it. I know we either run drill as well. Sure, like it's not cross country doing for
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we've been just super impressed, by, what Vicky's done, and what, Mr. Sherlow's done. They're gonna start something special here. That track team and cross-country program, and the end really on its last leg, huge fun. I'm telling you, there's a lot of energy and excitement, and I think they've got the right people at the helm. There are some recommended candidates for athletics, that are, we are awaiting paperwork on. For instance, lacrosse, I believe, that candidate's name will likely be on the agenda by next Wednesday if we have the pre-employment paperwork completed at that time. So, as typically the situation, as things develop between now and next Wednesday, the board will be aware of any additions that happen, and certainly the agenda will be posted by Monday evening ahead of the board vote Wednesday night.
Yeah. So, and the other thing too is, I'm actually, doing something big within with my firm, it's all Philadelphia, that's all robotics, so I know she's not even here tonight, I'd like to push that, is, computer science education. I know we have the syllabus, and I know the judge as well, is paid in STEM as well. So I know that's something I'm gonna push hard in that district in early December. So, the, 6 to the 12th, I can't remember, whatever the date was.
Yeah, it might be the 6th for the hour of code.
Yeah, and then it's like the whole week of education, but that's, it just made me think of that with robotics. we replaced that, so, right?
So these are for the, on this one, it's for the clubs, so since Mr. Mertens, is leaving us, then he has his extra duty pay assignment adjusted as a result of that. But we're gonna, continue that program, continue that club. I'm sure other people, will step up, keep those clubs and kids can be involved. And I know you offered, Mr. Tinsley, to go into one of the coding classes, and happy to have you back, and we'll set that up. Have you in on that day in December as well.
I'll do all week.
All week, I know, let them know.
Tell me what you need. And then, I get it, we're not the only company, we call ourselves a company, we're not the only company losing. We'll be okay filling that custodian's position as well? No, that's-
It's been posted, it says business teacher, we posted at STEM position, we have applicants, and, we'll go through our process and, find good candidates. There's, as we all, we've heard about the great resignation across the country, and that's certainly impacting education as well, where people are going to other districts, closer to home. There's just a lot of movement right now. And when a vacancy opens up in one place, someone goes. So if we lose a teacher, they're going to a district where someone just lost a teacher. And there's a lot of instability right now in education. And, that'll settle down, as it has since August, in fact, it already has. But we posted that and interview process for it starts soon.
Just like Rosina, she had paid shoes to fill as well, right?
He's very good. Yeah.
And we're gonna do that probably.
Rosina is, she's not leaving us, she's just shifting.
No, but she had big shoes to
Oh,
fill.
yes. I'm sorry, I think.
And is that gonna be, we'll wait till May for the clock for the formal presentation, but,
For retirement?
yeah.
Yeah, we'll do the retirement in person. again.
We'll do that, so we won't do just.
No, we'll do it all at the end of the year, yeah.
If possible, missed last year.
Yep.
So you get through Zoom.
Yeah, we can fill this out.
I'd like to,
Yeah, I'm okay.
if they're thrown out there, some may come, I would
Yep.
assume most will.
Yep.
Just look at leave of absences. 4.03 is the payment of routine bills through the, beginning of the year, January 19th meeting, that's, normal for us.
So, let's keep going.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna vote on anything in December? I thought sometimes we did.
Yeah, there have been years, there's been years where the, school board has only conducted reorganization at that meeting. I believe that we will have items to vote on. So I will be requesting that you take some action after you have your, reorganization.
But from a financial perspective, we're not voting on anything in December. Due to this.
Well, we wouldn't be, we still can.
These will be resolved, but we'll have some new items, particularly over the week between December 8th and the 17th.
We spoke about the compensation analysis, done by the PFDA.
That's a review, sorry.
That's a review all-
Review of the salaries.
Of across the board, anybody completely out of whack for years of service, what the norm is.
So this is it's limited to the Act 93 group. So you'll recall when we started the first one, which we believe was about 6 years ago, and there was not a administrative salary scale per se that was based on a formula, and we felt that we wanted to have a formula to determine the initial starting salaries for all of our administrators. That compensation study that we did 6 years ago led to the formula that we now use when we hire administrators. What has happened though is the market has changed in the last 6 months, obviously. So, we wanna make sure again that we're still consistent in the competitive marketplace. So are our assistant principal salaries competitive with our competitive marketplace in southeastern Pennsylvania? They give you modifiers each year, but they don't, unless you kind of redo the salary study on a regular basis every 5, 6, 7 years, the formula itself can be dated. Right, so the base pay for those positions may need to be adjusted every 5, 6, 7 years, outside of the inflationary increase that they've seen. It certainly gives us a lot more confidence in our pay rates, and it enables us also, with the Act 93 agreement expiring, for us to be able to meet with the management team representatives and say, a third party, an outside set of eyes, has looked at the salaries in Pendelco, and based on the duties, the size of the district, our budget, this is a fair salary for this position. So it's been very helpful for us, because it takes away subjectivity. And it also helps us attract and retain administrators.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but to be honest with you, I remember when we did it 6 years ago in the Sun Valley, library, and Sean's the one who presented it, and ironically, Sean was the one who ended up getting a bump too, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
It just worked out that way, and I think he just came, if I'm not mistaken, he left when he left the BCIU, it was within a year of him being on. So yeah, it has been, and I don't even know how many years you're supposed to do it.
No, and just, and especially now with.
It's never a bad thing to do. It lets us know where we're at. We still have to vote on if there's gonna be any adjustments or where they're at, or if
I'm
there's
just saying,
anything
like,
crazy
it'd be
out
good to do
there.
it now, especially with the way things are going, especially now, you know, with the market the way it is. I think it's a good thing, and I think it helps, I mean, administration too, to feel like, hey, we're looking out for you guys and making sure that everybody's on par, to make sure we don't lose the people that we need.
It works both ways. It helps us set a minimum salary that is a fair compensation for the work you do. But it also helps us set ceiling. So, you know, particularly for, veterans who may have been here for a long time, at some point in time, that's it, you've reached your max. But, I know Nita Tyre and Mr. Zebley are involved in this. Anything about this particular motion item that you haven't addressed, or you feel the board should be aware of?
The free version is we just look at price for it, right?
You good?
4.05, the disenrollment, hearing that we had last week. We will get the transcripts out. I'm sure they're just taking a little bit of time.
It came this afternoon.
Okay.
We received it from the solicitor's office. Sharon Verica will send to all board members tomorrow morning copies of the transcripts for both of these hearings. Administration is recommending disenrollment of these two students, on the basis of the residency hearing, that was conducted last week. I'll indicate in that as well, one, maybe more a formality. We haven't received documentation officially about the disenrollment, but we believe that they have enrolled in another district. The other one, was contested, and you'll see that in the transcript.
4.06, interim principal appointment. We need to appoint an interim principal until we hire someone. We will have an executive session following this meeting to speak of that.
Currently, that reads as a blank. We have a candidate to recommend. Want to make sure we have confidence in the board, for this candidate, so we'll speak about that in executive session. And, assuming that, we are in agreement, we'll have a name on the agenda next week, to, announce for the interim principal replacement. I can tell you that currently we have 17 applicants, for the Sun Valley principal position, and that that applicant, pool and job posting will remain open until next Wednesday.
You would envision putting a new one, if it's qualified and is a good fit for our school district, on the agenda in 2021?
I believe, we were talking about this today, our cabinet members and myself, that we will likely ask the board to come together, for a one motion quick meeting, probably somewhat right before the winter break, to have that person appointed, if we can do so. It would be rushed to have a name before the board by December 8th. Can't rush this process, we gotta get the right person. So I would anticipate that we'll have a candidate to recommend, before winter break, not as confident we can have it done by December. So I may request the board come back for a one motion appointment, whereas because whoever is hired, certainly if that candidate is working for another district, we would anticipate that candidate is going to be other recipient.
We Members of the public?